So Nick Bilbrogh, he is very active, and today he's gonna talk about one of his big projects, and I'm gonna read his abstract. So basically, in the chaos created by coronavirus, new opportunities for collaborative online learning are emerging. Activities which require nothing but a device connected to the internet and a willingness to use English communicatively and interculturally. So he's gonna explore three ways in which the Hands Up project, a project he's helming, is using online collaborative activities to develop the English language skills of learners around the world. All the activities are free and open to all. And as I was saying, Nick Bilbrogh, he is a teacher trainer. He is also an author, and he has taught and trained language teachers in many diverse contexts in Africa, Middle East, South America, and Europe. And his studies are focused on the drama in education. So let's give a big applause to Nick Bilbrogh, and you have the lead.
Thank you very much, Nick. So from one Nick to another.
Yes.
Also Nick, right?
Is your Nick short for something longer, or is Nick?
Yeah, it's actually Nicholas, but it's actually only my mum who ever calls me Nicholas, and she only does that when she's annoyed with me.
Okay.
So I tend to just go by Nick.
All right.
So thank you very much for that introduction. Yeah, I actually started my English language teaching journey in the early 90s in Japan. So it's a real honor and a real privilege to be back here, even though it's only virtually, but to be back here in Japan presenting about teaching, because that's where it all started for me. When I was a beginning teacher, I just trained as a teacher, and I lived in Hokkaido. I went to Hokkaido, and I was suddenly confronted with a huge class of teenagers. I think there were about 60 students in the class, and they were at an agricultural college in rural Hokkaido. And they were all studying English. And I did a weekly English class with them. And I remember coming into the class full of enthusiasm to try out all the ideas that I'd learned on my teacher training course, and being greeted by 60, mostly boys, leaning over their desks like this. And I can remember thinking, oh, fantastic. If I managed to keep everyone awake, if everyone was still awake by the end of the lesson, that was a huge achievement. Now, I think those learners in that classroom are not actually untypical. And in teacher training courses, we often think of the value of the communicative approach. The communicative approach is often really emphasized. Now, just a minute, I'm not very good at multitasking, but I'm just going to change my virtual background. I think that's not untypical that lots of students, particularly teenage students, are not really that motivated to learn English. And perhaps the communicative approach is a great idea in principle, but it doesn't always work. So, I mean, those learners in that classroom had probably never met anyone from another country before and never really had a need to learn English or to use English, certainly. So let's just remind ourselves about the communicative approach. Can I just, where are we? I can't see myself for some reason. That's really strange. But the communicative approach talks a lot about the value of using language to communicate, right? I'm presuming other people can see me.
Yes, we can see you.
Great. Okay. So the communicative approach talks a lot about the value of using language to communication and to communicate, and the idea that we learn through communicating messages. And we can see that here in the site from the British Council. But actually, there's something missing, isn't there? If learners learn things by expressing ideas about themselves, communicating personal information, it's not that exciting. If two learners at the same age, in the same classroom, who live in the same context, talk about what they do at the weekend or what their favorite hobbies are, we're going to get lots of similarities. So one of the things that we do in the Hands Up project is we try to bring in that intercultural aspect of it. And we had a lovely presentation earlier from Masako, which showed that in practice, how learners in Brazil are connecting to learners in Gaza and communicating with each other. And through that, suddenly learning becomes meaningful, or use of English becomes meaningful, because students don't actually know. Students in Brazil don't actually know how students in Gaza spend their weekends, and vice versa. So I'd like to just share a couple of slides with you now, if I can. So one of the things that we did in the Hands Up project, when the corona virus hit the world and schools were closed, we couldn't do our regular sessions. So our regular sessions were a group of students in Gaza, in Palestine, connecting to a remote volunteer somewhere in the world. And it was a kind of team teaching, and there would be storytelling, and there would be language games, lots of different activities. But we couldn't do that anymore when Corona, the pandemic, struck the world and schools were closed. So we had to think of other ways of doing things. And one of the things that we started doing was the idea of show and tell. So we set up classes where we had Zoom sessions with students in Palestine, but also students all over the world. And they were sharing, let me just get rid of that. So they were sharing things that meant something to them with other participants. So here we've got a show and tell session that we organized last year with students from Burma, China, Ecuador, Palestine, Spain, and teachers from lots of those countries as well. And it was a very simple idea. The idea was just that students would bring something along to the session that meant something to them, and they would talk about it. So I'll just play you a little bit of this interaction. Have you spoken, Nakam?
Hi.
Where's Nakam? Nakam, hi, hi.
My name is Nagam. I'm 14 years old. I'm from Gaza. First of all, this is my picture. Maybe it isn't careful, but I love this photo because this is the first time. This is the first time that I take photo in a studio and smile. Because when I was baby, all my photo was sad. Like I'm crying. I make anything that make the photo sad. This photo was when I'm 2 years old in 2008. And when I see this photo, I feel so happy because when I grow up, I will show my children that this is my photo when I'm 2 years old. Also, when I'm baby, my mom and dad names me Tweety because they said I look like her.
You look, who did they say you look like? I didn't catch the word.
Tweety,
Tweety.
yeah, the bird.
Oh, the cartoon character.
Yes,
So do they still call you Tweety now?
yes.
That's brilliant. Can you just show us the picture again, please, Nakam? So this is the first time you smiled in a photo.
Yes,
That's wonderful.
thank you.
That's brilliant. So we can really share some very interesting insights into people's lives, and I think it's very interesting what people choose to share in those show and tell sessions. There's something really weird going on. I can only see Nick on the screen. I don't know why that is. Maybe I'll put it onto gallery view and then I can see myself now. Yeah. I don't know if you're spotlighted or something. Are you, Nick? Are you spotlighted? Ah, that's it.
Yeah.
I can see myself now. It's nice to be able to see myself. So I know I'm still here. Okay, brilliant. So those kinds of sessions, I think, are very motivating because they're linking people in different countries. So suddenly it becomes meaningful and interesting to use English to talk about those kind of personal things that we encourage students to do in our regular classes. So wanted to just share now with you, just a minute. So another thing that we did during the pandemic, because schools were closed, we couldn't do our regular sessions. So we started moving over to Facebook Live. And Facebook Live has a lot of advantages over Zoom sessions. Obviously, there are a lot of disadvantages as well. But some of the advantages of doing Facebook Live sessions were that students could access the sessions from their own homes. So instead of having to have a good internet connection, they could just log on with a mobile phone. And obviously on Facebook Live, students wouldn't be able to show their videos, but they would be able to still comment in the chat, and they would be able to see the video of the presenters. And there are other advantages as well. We found that students were doing sessions with their family members. So their mums and dads, grandmothers, younger siblings were also getting involved in the sessions because they were doing them from their own homes. Every session that's done on Facebook Live is recorded automatically, and it's stored on the Hands Up Project's Facebook page. So students could also go back to the sessions and watch them again and comment on them again as well. And then we also had this nice thing that students could write comments as a way to practice and develop their written English. And because anyone could access the sessions, there were also lots of teachers present in the room. So there were teachers commenting on the comments by the students. There were teachers and there were learners and teachers of English all over the world, not just in Palestine, suddenly participating. So this meant that students in Palestine could suddenly interact with a student in Bosnia or somewhere else and use English in order to do that. So when we did these Facebook Live sessions, we had a curriculum, we did kind of curriculum-based sessions. So we worked with the Palestinian curriculum. We had a local teacher. I'll just show you a picture of that and you can see, let's go forward a little bit. So here we've got a local teacher in Palestine, Saha, working with a remote volunteer in this case, Lauren, who's from Australia but lives in Jordan, and they are team teaching the Palestinian curriculum through Facebook Live. So just going back, I'd just like to just look at some of the, what are some of the advantages and some of the disadvantages, what are some of the advantages of both types of teachers? And we had a look at this a little bit in Emily and Jackson's talk about team teaching. So I think that there are certain things that the local teacher brings to the table, and there are certain things that the foreign teacher brings to the table. I'm not talking here about native speaker or non-native speaker. I'm talking about somebody who lives in the same context as the learners and somebody who's from another context. So first of all, the local teacher, what does the local teacher bring to that learning environment? So first of all, they know the curriculum inside out. And obviously that must be the same in Japan when you're working with an assistant teacher and a local teacher, that the local teacher knows everything about what is the curriculum, what they're going to be tested on in the exams, that kind of thing. They also know, local teachers also know classroom practices that learners in Palestine are familiar with. So that's a huge advantage, of course. They know the first language of the learners so that they can translate if necessary, and they know which areas of English are particularly challenging or particularly easy for the learners. They also know the personalities of the learners, they know their strengths and weaknesses, and they know cultural knowledge. They know what things might be inappropriate to talk about in a Palestinian classroom, or what kind of shared knowledge there is between everyone. What about the foreign teacher? What does the foreign teacher bring to the table? The foreign teacher has in-depth knowledge of classroom practices which may be new and motivating for learners and teachers in Palestine. So those teachers who come from outside may be able to introduce an activity that learners in Palestine aren't familiar with, and that may be very motivating for those students. There's a motivating stimulus for the learners to use English. Because the foreign teacher doesn't know the first language of the learners, suddenly they have to use English in order to communicate. And there's an opportunity to expose the learners to more international, non-Palestinian forms of English. I'm sure that in Japan, I can probably remember some if I really try, but I'm sure there are certain things that people say which are kind of Japanese English, things that everyone says in Japan, but that people don't say when they're using English more internationally. I can give you an example of that in Palestine. In Palestine, lots of people say something like, you are mostly welcome. And it always makes me smile when people say that, because it sounds like you're not completely welcome, you're mostly welcome. It always makes me laugh. I mean, people in Palestine have a very good level of English. Teachers and students tend to have a very high level of English. But those kind of things, when you communicate internationally, it's important that people know that those are Palestinian varieties of English, and they're not necessarily varieties of English which are understandable or used in other contexts. The foreign teacher also brings a reason for the local teacher to use natural spoken English, and this provides an excellent model for the learners. So just the fact that there are two teachers talking together in English, suddenly the learners can see that English is actually something real that people use to communicate. And intercultural knowledge as well can be brought by the foreign teacher. So it's very interesting, perhaps, for learners to find out about how people live in other countries. So when we're doing these Facebook Live sessions, now, incidentally, these sessions are open to anyone. And I would, perhaps your Japanese students may like to participate in these sessions, either live or to watch the recordings. So, you know, here we've got a case where this is a grade 6 session, English for Palestine, and the teacher in Palestine and the teacher from Australia are discussing hobbies. And there's an interesting point where Saha, the Palestinian teacher, asked the students to write in the comments what their favorite hobby is. And Luai, a Palestinian student, says here in the comment, my favorite hobby, it's playing parkour. All right, so there's a beautiful opportunity. The student has had a go, made some mistakes, and that's a beautiful opportunity for learning. So I was in the comments myself there. I was participating in the session as a commentator, and I'm able to comment on Luai's comment, and I said, that's a wonderful hobby, Luai. Where do you do parkour? So there's some scaffolding going on there. I'm correcting the spelling and probably the pronunciation as well of the word hobby, but also I'm focusing on the collocation, the right collocation, the accurate collocation to use with parkour, not to play parkour, but to do parkour. And it's interesting that the student himself later corrects that. So in the comments, Luai says, when I said, where did you do parkour? He says, I learned it in school in 8th grade. And he's corrected himself the word hobby. So there's interesting opportunities for learning happening, not just through the two teachers who are presenting and talking to each other, but also in the comments that are going on there. Now, let's hear from, we've got lots of different pairs around the world who are working in this way. We've got one teacher in Palestine always working with a remote volunteer in another place. And I'd just like to show you an example of this from a much lower grade. This is from grade 4, I think. So they're kind of 8 or 9-year-olds. And this is how the interaction happens in one of these Facebook Live sessions.
Hello.
Hi.
What's your name?
My name is Dalia. I'm Dalia. What's your name?
My name is Elena. I'm Elena.
Nice to meet you.
Yes. Let me show you. Oh, not very good, but this is how you spell my name. Elena. So Dalia, where are you from?
From Palestine.
Oh,
I'm from Palestine.
that's great. Do you know
And
what?
where are you from?
I'm from Spain. Do you know where Spain is?
Spain? Sorry, I don't know where Spain is. So can you tell me about your country?
I will. Look at this. I've got a map here for you. I hope you can see it. And this is a map of one part of the world. Can you see it? Of one part of the world that we all know very well. This is the Mediterranean Sea. So imagine Palestine is right over here on this side, as you already know. Well, Spain is here.
Oh, it's far away.
It's very far away. And I live here in Bilbrogh.
So suddenly, those very simple questions like, where are you from? Where do you live? What do you do? What do you do at the weekend? What are your hobbies? All of those questions, which are in every single course book that was ever written, suddenly they become meaningful, interesting, and motivating. And that's probably the most important point about this kind of intercultural team teaching that we have. So let's hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were. This is Elena, who's a very experienced teacher of English from Spain, Spanish teacher of English. And she's here are her reflections about what the advantages of this way of working are. Yeah.
And she is.
I mean, I suppose there's also something about, there's an advantage in you not being from their culture in a way, because I think what often happens in these sessions is that students want to tell you things about what they eat, how they live, and it's obviously not the same for them to tell their teacher who lives in the same context as them. You know, so if they're kind of talking about the ingredients of a dish or something, there's a real kind of communicative need.
Yeah, because I don't know.
Because you don't know it.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It's kind of the two dimensions. On the one hand, if they're trying to tell me something about their culture, because Dalia knows it, she can help them. And on the other hand, the fact that I don't know means they have a reason to want to tell me about that. So I think there's a balance in all of those senses, which again comes back to our original question. You know, are two heads better than one? And you know, there's not one reason why I can think of that would lead me to answer no to that question, because I don't know. Sorry.
No, I suppose there's also something about the fact that Dalia has gone through the process that they're going through of learning English as a native speaker of Arabic. So she kind of knows what the massive issues are for them, what things are difficult about English for them.
That's a good point.
And
also, I also thought about something else, which is specifically to do with pronunciation. The fact that they hear, you know, we're having a conversation, often slightly scripted. If we're talking about these dialogues, we do script them a little bit because we want to focus on specific structures. You know, scripted means I've written in a Word document, what do you do at the weekend? And underneath it says on Fridays on Saturdays that's as scripted as it is, kind of thing. But you know, the fact that those very specific, very common words are said by me and by Dalia almost at the same time as a sort of question answer means that they hear how we are using two often quite different ways of pronouncing things, and yet, you know, the communication is happening despite that, and you know, it doesn't matter, and it kind of gives them confidence in feeling that, you know, pronouncing this, they don't need to pronounce words in the same way as I do at all. It doesn't, you know, and I think that it does a lot towards confidence. You know, English is not the English that I speak or the English that Dalia speaks, it's all of it. And it doesn't, you know, it doesn't stop us from communicating with each other at all. And I think that's, really valuable for the students.
Brilliant.
We could go on and on about this forever.
I know we could. So another thing that we do in the Hands Up project, which is a kind of intercultural connection experience, is the idea of remote theatre. So young people in Palestine and teachers in Palestine have developed a form of theatre which we call remote theatre, or we used to call it remote theatre before lockdown. Now we call it lockdown theatre. So this is where we have students performing plays with individual webcams, and they're performing them live on Facebook Live or at different events around the world. So here we've got a play that was performed by students, young people in Ukraine and young people in Gaza, acting together simultaneously to perform a play. And here's another one, which is called Live Your Life. Now, this play was performed originally written by young people in Gaza, but here it's performed by students in Spain, Argentina, and Gaza and Romania. And again, they're all acting together in the same play. I'm just a little bit conscious of the time. Can I have a couple of minutes over? Is that okay?
Sure, go ahead, Vic. Yes.
Great. I would love to be able to show you this play, and it's only a couple of minutes long, so I'm just going to share that with you. So this play was performed at it's been performed live on Facebook at various different events that we've done. I just wanted to check I'm sharing my sound. Am I sharing my sound? Yes, I am.
Life is sweet. I have lived my life in every single detail. Though I'm getting older, I'm still strong enough to go on. I still have my teeth, healthy. Here's my son and his wife. They are always complaining.
Come on, Abu Mahmoud, hurry up. Listen, Abu Mahmoud. I am worried about our daughter's future. I want years to pass fast. This year, I want them to get married. And this year, I want them to have babies. And in this year, I feel relieved and free from responsibilities.
That's true, dear. Girls are a heavy burden. What shall we do?
That's nonsense. Let the girls live their lives normally.
Hi, Grandpa.
Hi, sweetie. Have you finished your book?
Sure. It's wonderful, Grandpa. Oh, how much I love books. It's my favorite. Imagine, Grandpa, I dream of the day in which I get the first rank in the reading competition. All social media will talk about me. I will be very famous.
I'm just going to pause it there so you get a taste of what that's all about. And I'd like to share very quickly, if I may, just some reflections from the teacher who's participating, or the Palestinian teacher rather, who organized that play. Now, Palestinian teachers and learners are really at the forefront of this new emerging form of theatre and form of learning, really, remote theatre. And I think now what's happening is we're running remote theatre courses for teachers, and teachers around the world are learning these skills from the Palestinian teachers. And any teacher in Japan who would like to participate in one of those courses, you'd be very welcome to do that. And they're free as well. So just wanted to just share some of Hannah's reflections on that. Get that out of the way. So this is what Hannah says. So Hannah was the Palestinian teacher from Gaza who organized that play, working with her colleagues in Argentina, Romania, and Spain.
Also, regarding their English, they're involving the students in meetings, like we were doing like meetings for 2 weeks, like each day, involving them in those meetings with other children and with other teachers, all of us speaking English in those meetings. I think this is a great experience for them to use the language in a real context with people from different countries. It's not like it's I would say a metaphorical context or virtual context, but this is a real context to talk with children, with peers of age similar to their age. So this was also another wonderful thing for them. And they have learned a lot of things to regarding their dialogues, regarding their conversation and their speaking too. And I would say like absolutely their communication skills have developed a lot regarding this experience. And they were making friends from other countries, and they were so happy and so excited about it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, we kind of sometimes insist on students using English in the class.
Yeah,
like we might insist on them using English in their classes in Gaza, and their normal classes.
yeah.
But here they actually have to use English, don't they?
Yes.
There's no other way of them communicating, and no other way of making the play if they can't talk in English. And so I think it's a very rich learning environment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right, because they need to communicate with their peers, and they have no other language that could be understood and could be intelligible for them. So using English is their best means of communication.
Yeah. What about
also regarding their English,
okay,
they're
great.
involving the students in meetings like.
So fantastic. Thank you for allowing me those few extra minutes there. I'll just say that doing a remote play is a very rich experience for a number of reasons. I mean, first of all, we've got the obvious thing of just learning the lines and that really strong focus on accuracy. But there's all the language that happens around the play as well, discussing props, discussing how the play is going to be staged, that kind of thing, and feedback to the actors as well. So a very rich learning experience. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that you'll find some ways in which you and your learners may be able to be involved in the Hands Up project. I think Raja is here, our coordinator in Gaza, and I think she's put some links in the chat for different things. I don't know if we've got time for a quick question or two, have we?
Yes, I'm gonna stop recording.